this. This time my mic is unmuted. I made sure of that. Oh my god. It takes like 3 notes to get me in the mood for this game. Let's talk about Majora's Mask. You can see again, I almost pointed correctly this time. I got the PAL version box art again on screen, which, as you can see, same with Ocarina of Time, we got the cooler box art, in my opinion. The logo that contrasts with the green, it just looks so cool. And, of course, my OG cartridge, which is golden, which is nice. The European cartridge for Ocarina of Time is not golden, as we saw last week. But the Majora's Mask one is. Probably because they realized Majora's Mask is the better game. But I'm just starting fights at this point. I also, for literally the first time for these reviews, brought my OG player's guide. This is a legit trip down memory lane. I got this pretty much almost after I beat the game. Of course you'll do. I got this because I couldn't find all the masks. That's hard to see, right? I couldn't find all the masks as like a 10 or 11-year-old child. So I got the player's guide pretty much only for like the last 6 pages. I'll put that to the side. But let's talk about Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask came out in the year 2000, so very, very shortly after Ocarina of Time, which made a huge impact. We talked last week about how insanely important and influential Ocarina of Time is as a game. And originally, Majora's Mask started out as like an add-on or an alternate version of Ocarina of Time that they wanted to... Music a little bit less loud. We can do that. Thanks for telling me. Originally, they wanted to port Ocarina of Time to the disk drive, and since they had more memory space there, they could add more stuff, and they wanted to have like reworked dungeons and extra content. The working title was like Majora Zelda, at least that's the title that's floating around the internet for it. It didn't get made, but eventually they scrapped it and decided Eiji Aonuma, who is now the series director for Zelda, it was his first stint as director. And he got the possibility to work on his own original Zelda game, with the caveat that they had to finish it in like 10 months or so. It had an insanely short production time, which explains why it reuses a lot of assets from Ocarina of Time, like character models and textures and so on and so forth. But it also has a whole bunch of new content, including an entire new world and gameplay premise, new abilities, new items, new music, and new songs for the ocarina to play. And it's, in general, a bit smaller in scope than Ocarina of Time, probably due to the very short development time. This is one of, I think, only like 3 games for the NES, for the N64 that need the memory upgrade. That you could either buy like on its own, or you could get... I got it from like... It was packed with Donkey Kong 64, because apparently there was a game-breaking bug with that game that could only be fixed by having more RAM, so they packed the RAM expansion into the game. You can even see it like very, very slightly there in the top right corner. It might have even been bundled with Majora's Mask, but I already had it. And I think Perfect Dark is the third game that needs the memory expansion. So for an N64 game, this game still looks pretty good. But we'll get to the graphics in just a bit. This is the first Zelda game that I got pretty much on release, like at least very shortly thereafter. And it was the first Zelda game that I beat before my equally Zelda-obsessed best friend at the time. I was very happy with that as a child. I remember I was quicker than him. I immediately fell in love with this game. It has been a special game for me ever since I first played it when I was 10 or 11 years old. I can't remember exactly. Must have been 10. Must have been 10. And it never left this place in my heart. It has consistently been one of my top 3 favorite games, or top 5, for like 25 years at this point. So, let's talk about what makes this game so special to me. Majora's Mask deviates a lot from its predecessor, which I described as a very safe game. Like, remember last week I said that Ocarina of Time, the jarring jump to 3D and reworking of all the mechanics to fit in a 3D space was contrasted with, when it comes to the basic gameplay and world and story design, a very safe Zelda game. They didn't take a lot of chances there because they focused on the technical revolution. Now that the technical revolution was done, they veered wildly in the opposite direction and made, probably to this day, the weirdest Zelda game ever. That still exists. Link's Awakening is also a contender, and you could argue Twilight Princess, but I don't think either of them reached the weirdness that is Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask has some heavy themes and really dark and moody and depressing atmosphere that no other Zelda game really has. Twilight Princess, kinda. Twilight Princess is a game that wants you to think it's dark and thus presents itself as a dark game. Majora's Mask doesn't need to present itself as a dark game because you very quickly realize that it is a dark game. And over everything, of course, we have the visual design that reinforces the core structure, which is the giant moon with a face in the sky, and the 3-day cycle that revolves around everything that you do in this game. Graphics-wise, I already said it, this game needed the memory expansion pack, and it feels a bit more fluent and vibrant compared to Ocarina of Time. There are more textures, more detailed textures. You can see that they had, for a lot of the game, they had more confined spaces, so they could up the details, which also obviously the RAM provided. And even though it is a very, again, dark and moody game, some colors just feel more vibrant and pop a bit more than Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time feels a bit muddy at times. It runs at the same frame rate, but it kind of feels more fluid. I full on believe that in the very beginning there's a section where you jump from tree log to tree log. And Link does a few flips, which he didn't do in Ocarina of Time. I fully believe that they put that in the very beginning of the game to show off, look, we can do more stuff now. It looks better, we can do more. And I do agree that it looks better than Ocarina of Time. Obviously, N64 games have aged a lot, and I feel like the frame rate is the worst offender. I'm a firm believer in that games It's more important that games are fluid than that they are pretty. Fluid gameplay is more important than pretty graphics. Both, obviously, is a good combination. But when you can have either one, you'd rather have your game run at 60 and be a little murky looking than having it run at like 15. But you can still play Majora's Mask today. It's not a big detractor. I actually very recently replayed this, and it was better than I remembered. I mean, the frame rate. I remembered it being kind of sluggish, and it worked itself out. The sound and music is very similar to Ocarina of Time, obviously. Again, a lot of, especially sound effects, are just reused due to the short development time. And it is good that I played it, because I love that game. And also a lot of the music pieces in general are just like classic series iterations that come from Ocarina of Time. Like, very fitting right now, the fairy theme. But there are also a lot of other, like, new music pieces, including new songs for the Ocarina. Like, the poor Koji Kondo had to pump out more songs, more simple melodies out of these like 5 notes that you could play at the Ocarina, after already complaining that it was very difficult to do so in an entertaining manner in Ocarina of Time. Now he had to do it again. And when it comes to the Ocarina songs, you can kinda tell that the good ideas were already done for Ocarina of Time. Like, the Ocarina songs, I feel like, for the most part, are better in Ocarina. But there are some bangers. I mean, Song of Healing is amazing. One of the best Zelda songs ever. There are also just a few soundtrack pieces that really stand out. Like, most notoriously, Clockwork City. What's it called? Is it called Clockwork City in English? I don't even remember. The, like, center city. You know, the big city. And since you have this 3-day cycle, a few of the music pieces switch, like primarily the city theme, switch and change between each singular day, which really just adds to the atmosphere. I love that. I love how, especially with the town theme, it gets more chaotic, more quickly, more like irritating the closer the moon is to falling. Which brings us... I haven't said a spoiler warning again. Spoiler warning. I forget every single time. Which brings us to the story of this game. This game has such a fucked up story. And I love it for that. Basically, Link is trying to find Navi, who after Ocarina of Time just floats away, goodbye, never to be seen again. Literally never to be seen again, because Link doesn't find her in this game. But he's looking for her and gets ambushed by a Skull Kid. And there's heavy implication that it's the same Skull Kid that you teach Saria's song to in Ocarina of Time, wearing a weird mask accompanied by 2 fairies. The mask obviously is Majora's Mask, and the fairies are, in English, it's Tattle and Tail, I think. They steal your horse, which was funny to me because you couldn't ride Epona as a child in Ocarina of Time, but in Majora's Mask you can. So they steal this little horse, this little young horse from this little child, and you're in wild pursuit. And when you finally get to them, you like fall through a really trippy tunnel, immediately setting a different mood. And you get a weird nightmarish scene when the Skull Kid transforms Link into a Deku Scrub. And it's horrifying, frankly. It's still kinda horrifying. It's not a jump scare, but it's that, like, getting under your skin kinda creepy. And it still hits. I feel like it still hits. Afterwards, you get to Clock City. I forgot the English name, I'm sorry. Clock Town? I think maybe it's Clock Town, actually. And You find the Happy Mask Salesman, also a character that had a very short role in Ocarina of Time as part of the like mask trading side quest. But here he plays a major role in giving you an out of your new undesired form. Bring him Majora's Mask, and he can fix everything. First off, he says, you need to get your ocarina back, which the Skull Kid has stolen, and then I can fix you back. And in return, you bring me Majora's Mask, but I'm only here 3 days. Well, the reason he's only there 3 days is because the moon is falling, and the moon looks fucking creepy. It has a face, and it's constantly dropping down. And by the time the third night hits, the night of the third day, it's so close. It's almost claustrophobic. The Skull Kid, or Majora's Mask, is dragging the moon down. And if you don't fulfill all of your objectives, you get a cutscene where the moon falls and Link and everything is ruptured away in a wall of flame from the explosion. So then you're thrown into the world where you have to eventually get to all 4 corners of the world, which are really varied in appearance and landscape. You have a desert or dry ass canyon. You have the coast. You have a swampy forest, and you have snowy mountain peaks, where you have the different races that were all introduced in Ocarina of Time. The Dekus actually become more of intelligent and a civilization. I don't really like that word, but you know what I mean. They have a settlement, which is something they didn't have in Ocarina of Time. There were singular Dekus that were placed all over the place. And you have to eventually go through all the single dungeons, 4, which is really still one of the smallest amount of dungeons. And then you have to finally fight and stop the Skull Kid and Majora's Mask and the moon from falling. It's so... even the small side quests are so depressing sometimes. And the general vibe is so creepy in this game. It has way less lighthearted moments. A lot of death is in this game. And you're confronted with it a lot. In every single area. The swamp is kind of an exception, but in every single area you get a big transformation mask. And usually it's it contains the soul of someone who has passed away. Even the Deku mask that you get, your Deku form, when you eventually get your Ocarina of Time, and the mask salesman turns it into a mask that you can then put on to willingly turn into the Deku Scrub again. Even that inherits the soul of a dead Deku, which you see the tree corpse at the end of the tutorial, or the beginning of the game. And then later on, you get a Goron mask, you get a Zora mask. All of them immediately have to do something with death and with the relief from torment, which is usually in this game meant to be playing the Song of Healing to them. Yeah, him putting on the mask also looks horrible. Horrible. They sold this game to children. But I loved it. I still do, to be completely honest. Yeah, and the masks being a central theme of the game are also integral to the gameplay. The masks and the 3-day cycle are the core gameplay features of Majora's Mask, and also the key differences between that game and pretty much every other Zelda game. The masks, you have the big transformation masks that transform you into one of the 3 races that were introduced in Ocarina of Time. Well, I guess Zoras were technically introduced before that, but you know what I mean. Like Gorons, Dekus, Zoras, with different abilities that you need to use, especially in the areas where you get the masks, but also later on. And especially at the very end and in the last main dungeon, you have to use pretty much all of the masks and all of the transformation in conjunction to get through it, which makes it out to be a really cool climax of the game, puzzle-wise. You also have a lot of non-transformation masks, which still, not all of them, but a lot of them have properties that they give you. The most famous ones, obviously, the bunny hood, which makes you run faster and jump farther. So a lot of people, including myself, pretty much always ran around Termina, which is the world of Majora's Mask, with cute little bunny ears on. And when you get all of the masks, a lot of them are optional. You can get the special secret hidden mask for the very last fight, which is the oh god, I don't remember the English name. It's Fierce Deities something. Mask of the Fierce Deity. I don't know. But you get a special mask that actually transforms you into a warped version of adult Link, which is the only part of this game where you actually play as adult Link, kinda. Again, it's a very weird version. You can only use it in boss fights, but you can refight bosses with it, which is kind of cool. And it's meant... See, now we have the city theme. It's second day, you hear these it's quicker and you hear these swelling, somewhat disturbing minor chords or diminished chords underneath. I love it. I love the soundtrack so much. The Fierce Deity's mask is a reward for you to find all of the other masks when you find all of the other masks, because it trivializes the final boss to an absurd extent. It's insanely easy. I fell for the bunny ear trap. What do you mean trap? It's amazing. It looks cool and it's the best mask in the game. Yeah, it's... You have the masks, and then the other gameplay part, obviously, is the 3-day cycle. Characters like NPCs had... They had somewhat of a schedule, but it wasn't nearly... pretty much it was only, okay, they have something to do at daytime and something to do at nighttime. Having a 3-day cycle that's fixed, that you can restart at any point, makes it so that every single NPC can have a very detailed schedule for where they are and what they do every single hour of every single day. For some of them it's more complex than for most of them. Most of them just have a singular thing or 2 things they do, but some of them have really detailed schedules and appear at multiple places in very specific times that is needed for side quests. And that's what makes this game so engaging and so interesting, because some simple things change between days that you might not even realize. Maybe a Goron is now frozen in ice that wasn't frozen in ice on the first day. But by the second day, he's been outside so long that he's now frozen in ice, and you have to find him, or he's in a snowball. Bosses are easier as an adult. There are more guns. I mean, kinda. I can't disagree with that. And with a 3-day cycle, stands and falls your enjoyment of this game. I always say that a gimmicky game, your enjoyment of a gimmicky game is only as great as your enjoyment of the gimmick. If you hate a gimmick that's central to a game, you will not enjoy your time with that game as much as you could. Like, for example, for me, Tears of the Kingdom, I absolutely dislike Ultra Hand. So my enjoyment of this game was severely limited by me not enjoying to build stuff. Now, a lot of people, both at the time and today, really dislike the 3-day cycle. I loved it, and I still love it, because it makes the world way more engaging, and it makes for the most interesting side quests to this day in Zelda games. Like, everyone knows the Lover's Mask, which is a side quest that literally begins at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the first day, and it doesn't end until like 5 minutes or like 1 minute before the third day is over and you have a game over. It's amazing. Yes. And I like underdogs, yeah. If you are not prepared and you play the game for the first time, there will be some repetitions because you will run out of time. Maybe a few times. Maybe you have mismanaged something, started something that you don't have enough time to finish, especially the dungeons, and that can be annoying. And then you have to reset and go back. But I feel like, in general, the game gives a lot of good stops. Like, oftentimes, you can go into a dungeon when you have the prerequisite to go into a dungeon. For example, for the Swamp Dungeon, it's a song you learn. Once you have the song, you can turn back the time. You don't need to do everything before it to then start the dungeon fresh on day one. And also, by now, everyone knows about the song that slows the days, slows the time, which makes it, of course, way easier. But it's also really fun, and people have done that quite a bit now, to play through the entire game in just a singular 3-day cycle. At least not counting the first one, which you can't do everything on the first cycle because you only get turned back into Human Link at the beginning of the second cycle. But then you can make it a challenge for yourself to beat the entire game only on the second cycle, which is kind of fun. I've talked now a lot about this game. It's already 30 minutes again, and this has been like one of the easiest, but probably also one of the most rambliest unscripted reviews for me. Because I just love this game. I just bloody love this game. It's still so very special to me because unlike, let's say, Ocarina of Time, which is also an amazing game that I have huge amounts of nostalgia for, I feel like Majora's Mask is still truly unique. And for a lot of Zelda games, especially the ones that I would consider to be less gimmicky, like Ocarina of Time, A Link to the Past, even Twilight Princess, like games that do have a gimmick, but it's not as central to the mechanic, to the gameplay. I still love those games, but because of that, to me at least, they feel less unique, and there really has not been another game in this series, or maybe even outside of Zelda, like Majora's Mask. It is truly a masterpiece in moody storytelling, and it's drenched in atmosphere. There are these theories that the world of Termina is supposed to be a purgatory for Link who's died, and that's also why a lot of characters have the same names but different relationships, or look the same as their Hyrule counterparts. You can superimpose the stages of grief onto the areas, which is a fun little idea. I don't really think that's how they went about it, but it's still interesting to think about. And it just puts you in a mood. Now, the last thing I want to say is, same with Ocarina of Time, there are like two major ways to play this game nowadays, which is the original console version or an emulated version of that, or the 3DS remake. Now, for Ocarina of Time, the 3DS remake was pretty true to the original, and they only made like some quality of life changes, especially like around the water temple, primarily to make the iron boots equipable like an item instead of having to go into the equipment menu. But for Majora's Mask, they did change quite a bit, and my only guess is because Majora's Mask was notoriously like unforgiving, both in like you could only save on like safe spots or by going back in time. There was no free save like in Ocarina of Time. It was also, again, going back in time was really disruptive because you also lost all your money unless you put it in a bank. You lost all of your ammunition and stuff. She Majora on my mask till I Triforce. Well, alright then. Good to see you. Good to see you as well, Sparky. They made a lot of changes in the 3DS version, and I think it's a cop-out. I think they weren't standing by the, at times, really harsh design decisions that Majora's Mask made and tried to soften them up for a like modern audience. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. So I would highly recommend, if you want to play Majora's Mask, to play the original N64 version, because in my opinion, those like edges and harshnesses, those make this game the masterpiece that it is. It doesn't need softening, because that takes away from the impact that this game can have on you. My god, that was more than 30 minutes. But I love this game. What can I say? It's my favorite Zelda game, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. I just love it so much.